Last week, Alvin Bragg indicted Trump on charges that are more than 7 years old. And right after that, Trump's poll numbers doubled as people stand behind the one being attacked. But the damn dirty Democrats are not slowing down anytime soon. What does that mean? Let's find out. You're watching The Dimitri Cerullo Show, and I am your host, Dimitri Cerullo. Without further ado, let's begin.
Facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Moving with the first segment, since the beginning, they have always attacked Trump. They attacked Trump as soon as he got elected. They tried to impeach him, then, obviously, it didn't work. So they tried it again, and again, and again. But did they finally get him this time? Drum roll, please. Probably not. Let me ask you, what is their real motive for trying to arrest Trump? Do they really want him behind bars, or do they just want an ooh and an ah moment and a picture of him sitting behind a top car, sucking on a lollipop and crying? I say it's the latter. Even if he was arrested, it wouldn't stop him from running in 2024. In fact, in the Constitution, it actually does not say anything about not running for president, except for saying that you need to at least be 35 years old. The worst thing to come out of this is Trump paying a fee and then carrying on with his life. With that being said, let's move on. Moving on to the first article, we actually have Governor Bill Lee to propose ban to put armed guard in every Tennessee school. And this is exactly what every single governor of the 50 states of the United States of America should actually do to protect our children. Every Tennessee private and public school will have resources necessary to hire an armed guard if Governor Bill Lee, Republican from Tennessee, gets his plan through a Republican-led legislature. Next week, Lee will propose a plan to funnel millions of dollars to public and private schools to beef up security following the mass shooting at a Nashville Christian elementary school on Monday. Lee's plan will place an armed resource officer, SRO, in every public school and provide funding for private schools to hire armed security guards with the same level of training as those in public schools. Private schools would not be forced to join in the program, the Tennessean reported. Quote, I think we all understand when people are fearful, when people are angry, when people lash out. I have those same emotions myself. We all do, Lee said. We have an obligation. I have an obligation to do what I can do to work together with leaders across the community to address people's concerns and to protect our kids in whatever way we can. And I completely agree. We do have the obligation, and the rest of the United States governors should take notes. And the President of the United States of America has to take notes as well. The Republican governor reportedly said that he will work over the weekend to ensure his plan will get to schools the funding and resources they need. Lee's proposed budget earlier this year included $20 million for schools to use on security upgrades, but he wants to expand the funding to include private schools. The Covenant School, where a trans-identified woman killed 3 adults and 3 9-year-olds, is a private Presbyterian school. Earlier this week, Tennessee Republican Senators Marsha Blackburn and Bill Haggerty announced they will introduce the Safe School Act at the federal level. The legislation seeks to establish a $900 million grant program that will allow both private and public schools to train and hire veterans and former law enforcement officers to serve as school safety officers, hire off-duty law enforcement officers, and provide funding to hire hardened schools and increase physical security. The governor also addressed mental health concerns, adding that his next plan will seek more mental health support through school-based behavioral health lessons, according to the Tennessean. There will be conversations across the board about mental health for students and mental health in general, and support for those who need help and who do in fact become a threat to themselves or others, Lee said. Lee's proposed ban to reinforce school security comes after hundreds of protesters swarmed the Tennessee state capitol in Nashville on Thursday, demanding that lawmakers take action to pass gun control. Lee did not specifically mention gun control measures, such as a red flag law that will allow the government to take firearms away from those who are found to be at risk to themselves or others, but he did touch on the topic in the one comment to the Tennessean. Quote, most practical, thoughtful people believe the individuals who are a threat to themselves or others shouldn't have the right to have access to those weapons, Lee said. In my view, That's a practical, thoughtful approach. Asked to clarify his position on the red flag law, Lee's office told the Daily Wire that it's very important to the governor to pursue solutions that will seek to protect both the lives and the constitutional rights of those in the state. Quote, in light of the recent tragedy at Covenant, the governor is proposing further action within his current school safety proposals, including funding to a place in SRO in every Tennessee school, boost physical school security, and provide additional mental health resources for Tennesseans. Lee's office said in an email, as the governor is mentioned yesterday, his goal is to continue to protect the constitutional rights for Tennesseans and protect Tennesseans from those who wish to do harm to themselves or others. He believes any practical solutions must ensure both. And I completely agree. How about we make a red flag law that's federal, that if you do have gender dysphoria, quote unquote, gender dysphoria, then you should not be allowed to hold or harbor any gun at all, because that is a very serious mental illness. Just like if you have Alzheimer's, you do not have the right to carry a gun. If you have any serious mental illness at all, you do not have the right to carry a gun. It's just so clear cut because we will prevent any school shootings from happening in the future. Moving into the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have video. Dozens hospitalized after a massive tornado rips through Little Rock. Arkansas' capital city is receiving a reeling after a massive tornado blew through on Friday afternoon, sending dozens to the hospital and causing extensive damage. Witnesses videos of the funnel from several angles as it passed through the area, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. And let's actually watch this first video here. Come on.
Film. Oh my God. And if not, I'll send it to you if we're still here.
Cindy, is it going the other way? Is it going around us?
It's going that way. It's not dissipating.
Yeah, it looks like it's dissipating.
Or gathering more.
Yeah, look at it. Cameras off. Here we are, a bunch of
Look, that
dummies
guy's
with
on
our
the building.
cameras off.
Oh boy.
Look, that guy's on the building.
There's a person on the top of the building just recording this. I would not do that. I would not do that.
What is he doing? Oh my God, he
He's getting
is.
good, yeah, that could be.
Oh my God, he is.
Yeah, that could be.
This lady. So yeah, this is very bad. This is very, very bad. So they're actually on the 7th floor of Medical Towers 1. Yeah, that's crazy. And then now there's a second angle here. From this. Oh, this one's worse. You can actually see this one. Oh boy. Yeah, no, this is crazy. Nope. I will run away from that thing. I do not trust tornadoes. No. Nope. I'm very good. This is why I don't live in a place that there's a lot of tornadoes. In fact, I have never had a tornado where I live, so I'm very proud of that. And it's very, very sad when these things happen. Little Rock Mayor Frank Scott Jr. announced in a tweet that he had been in contact with Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, asking for the state to provide any assistance for people impacted that might need help. Quote, I have been in contact with Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders to request National Guard assistance with our response to the tornado emergency, he said. Quote, again, please stay away from the affected areas to allow emergency responders access. Sanders' response was quick. Here at the Capitol, I just signed an executive order declaring the state of emergency exists in the state of Arkansas due to today's severe weather. We will spare no resource to assist with a response and recovery efforts for Arkansans impacted. This is what Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. I have activated the Arkansas National Guard. They will be assisting Arkansas State Police and law enforcement around the state, she added. Reports of casualties began pouring in almost immediately as people began to make their way into hospitals for treatment. Mayor Scott issued a statement saying that he already knew of 24 who had been injured. Quote, at the time, we know of about 24 people who have been hospitalized at Little Rock hospitals, and we are not aware of any fatalities in Little Rock at this time. Property damage is extensive, and we are still responding. Kara Wade, a spokesperson for Baptist Health Medical Centers in Little Rock and North Little Rock, confirmed to the New York Times that they were already treating 21 patients who had been injured during the tornado, and several of them were critical. The damages reported so far have been extensive. Roofs are ripped off their homes, and businesses, churches, and schools sustained heavy damages. Vehicles were flipped, and trees and street signs were bent or felled together. According to the New York Times report, by Friday evening, some 90,000 people in Arkansas were still without power. And this is crazy, because this was put out a few days ago on the Daily Wire. So I think most of those people have electric now, but it's just sad that all of those people that the roof has been lifted up off of their house, they don't have a house now. And that's a very upsetting thing. Now, with that being said, let's dig into a dozen takes.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love.
Moving with the first article, we actually have a CNN article. We have Senator Fetterman opens up about the, quote, downward spiral before receiving treatment for depression. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman opened up about his struggle with depression during a candid interview with CBS News that was taped during his stay at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Quote, I have stopped leaving my bed. I had stopped eating. I was dropping weight, and I had stopped engaging most of the things that I love in my life, Fetterman told CBS, Jane Pauley. And you know why this happened? Because of the fact that John Fetterman's wife left him and went on a vacation with the rest of the family without him while he was sitting in his bed in the middle of the hospital, alone. That's exactly why he's so depressed, and his depression kept spiraling because of his selfish wife. The Pennsylvania Democrat said that he had never attempted to harm himself, but he was indifferent about his life. And if the doctor said, gee, you have 18 months to live, I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, that's how things go now, he said. Fetterman, whose win helped cement Democrats' 51-49 Senate majority last fall, was discharged last week from Walter Reed, where he had been treated for his depression. He had suffered a stroke last year during the days ahead of the primary. When he returned to the campaign trail, Fetterman often struggled to communicate with the lingering auditory processing issues, relying on assistance through devices with closed captioning to converse and answer questions. The same auditory processing issues impacted him in the early days in the Senate, and when he struggled with substantial weight loss and loss of appetite, he was diagnosed with clinical depression and later was admitted to Walter Reed for treatment. Quote, I was a Democratic retreat, and many of my colleagues were coming up and asking, why aren't you eating? Fetterman recalled during an interview. Oh yeah, so the first thing that they say, why aren't you eating? Like, come on, fat ass, we have all this food right here. Why aren't you eating? That's the only thing they care about? Come on. Like, how many days were you not eating for them to ask you? Like, it's like, oh, you're eating, a bunch of people around. Like, fat ass, we have a food right there. Why aren't you eating? Like, how does that conversation actually come up? I would like to know that. But following his discharge from Walter Reed, Fetterman said in a statement, I want everyone to know that depression is treatable and treatment works. Does it really? How long did it take to work? 2 months? It isn't about politics. Right now, there are people suffering with depression in red counties and blue counties, and I need your help. Please get help, he said. Fetterman is expected to return to the Senate the week of April 17, but he told CBS that his immediate plans, including taking his son to a restaurant that they were supposed to go during his birthday, but couldn't because he had checked himself for depression. And being that kind of dad, that kind of husband, and that kind of senator that Pennsylvania truly deserves. Okay, so you're that kind of dad, husband, and senator. Okay, so why did your wife just leave you and take the kids on a vacation while you're in the middle of the hospital? This isn't really making sense here. Your wife does not love you. I'm sorry about that. You're going to spiral even more. Moving on to the next article, we actually have a CNN article. Fact check. Biden's claim that you're not allowed to own a flamethrower or a machine gun isn't true in most states. I'm glad they're actually fact checking true. President Joe Biden claimed Tuesday that Americans are not allowed to own a machine gun or a flamethrower, but that's not true in most of the country. Biden made the claim while delivering a plea for a renewed ban on semi-automatic assault weapons in the wake of a massacre on Monday at the Christian elementary school in Nashville. Okay, so first of all, okay, what is an assault weapon? Can you explain to me what an assault weapon is? Because I can use this remote to whack you on the forehead. This is used as a weapon to assault you. I can use my phone to smack you across the forehead. This is used as a weapon to assault you. I can use the sock, okay, to wrap it around your neck. This is a weapon that I use to assault you. Now, with that being said, there is no clear-cut definition of what an assault weapon is. They just pretend that they know what an assault weapon is because they just want to ban all guns. They just, that shotgun right there, ban it. Oh, that pistol right there, ban it. That AK right there, ban it. Oh, the assault rifle, ban it. This one, ban it. That one, ban it. They want to ban all guns. That's what they want to do, okay? Sorry to blur the lines or unblur the lines right here. Whoa, the evil thing behind the curtain, boom, it's a Democrat. They want to take your guns. That's what they want to do. Sorry, not sorry, that's what they want to do. Now, the assault weapon is a general term used for anything, okay? Ban this, ban that, ban the sock, they just want to ban everything. Because they don't like you having fun. They don't like you hunting. They find that disgusting. The true American way is disgusting and they hate it. Okay, your constitutional rights, they hate it. They love having the power to do whatever they want. They love seeing you die for nothing. Okay, they love seeing you die because you do not have the power to fight for yourself and defend your family. They would rather you call the police, which they defunded. So that makes sense. Moving with the article, Biden said, cool, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I have 2 shotguns. I have sons with shotguns, but our states, everybody thinks somehow the Second Amendment is absolute. You're not allowed to go and own an automatic weapon. You're not allowed to own a machine gun. You're not allowed to own a flamethrower. Okay, so even before CNN comments on this, a machine gun is not one of the quote assault weapons that you want to ban. And second of all, a flamethrower was actually sold by Elon Musk. Many people bought that said flamethrower. That's not something that's banned in most of the country, as what CNN is about to say. Biden's claims are inaccurate with regard to most Americans. People are allowed to own and buy flamethrowers almost anywhere in the country. Flamethrowers are not restricted by federal firearms laws, and only one state bans possession of them. With some exceptions, people in more than 2/3 of the country are allowed to own and buy a fully automatic machine gun as long as those guns were legally registered and processed prior to May 1986. There were more than 700,000 legally registered machine guns in the United States as of May 2021, according to the official federal data. Asked for comment, White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates said in an email, quote, his point is that virtually everyone accepts that there is some weapons civilians should not own, and that, as he is, you can be a Second Amendment supporter and also passionately believe in assault weapons ban. Okay, but what is an assault weapon? What's an assault weapon? Can you explain to me what an assault weapon ban is? Little Mr. Andrew Bates, can you explain to me what an assault weapon is? No, you can't, because an assault weapon is not a category of gun. It's a category that you just pulled out of your rear end and said, this is an assault. This is an assault weapon. This is that light over there. That's an assault weapon. Ban that. Ban this. Ban that. You want to ban everything. Moving with the article, flamethrowers. Contrary to Biden's unequivocal declaration about flamethrowers on Tuesday, a similar claim from Biden in a CNN interview in 2019, people in almost every state are allowed to process these incendiary devices. Flamethrowers, which project a stream of fire and best known for their deadly military applications, the United States Armed Forces stopped using them as such weapons after the Vietnam War, but they can be used in a variety of practical civilian purposes, such as starting controlled burns, cleaning land for agriculture, melting snow and ice, and entertainment, CNN reported in 2015, on companies that had started selling flamethrowers to civilians last year. Possession of a flamethrower is legal under federal law, but in 2018, the billionaire Elon Musk prompted public discussion of flamethrowers. The Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives said it has no regulatory function related to flamethrowers. The same year, the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission tweeted out recommendations on how to use firearms and how to use them safely. The House of Representatives did not move forward that year with the Democratic congressman's bill that sought out to impose significant federal restrictions on flamethrowers. Flamethrower possession is banned in Maryland. In California, the possession of a flamethrower designed to propel in a burning stream 10 feet or more requires a permit from the state's fire authority. In general, though, flamethrower possession is widely legal. Some particular communities may have their own restrictions, like Los Angeles Fire Code, for example, prohibits people from using a flamethrower except with the fire chief's permission. Machine guns. Possession of a machine gun is generally legal in more than 2/3 of states, according to an analysis published by the Giffords Law Center, to prevent gun violence as long as the gun was lawfully possessed. Prior to May 19, 1986, the day President Ronald Reagan signed a major gun law, 25 states have minimal or no regulation of machine guns, according to Gifford's analysis. Federal law imposes significant national restrictions on machine gun purchases, in the fact that there is a limited pool of pre-May 1986 machine guns means that buying these guns tends to be more expensive, regularly in the tens of thousands of dollars. But for Americans in most of the country, Biden's claim that you are not, quote, allowed to own a machine gun, period, is not true. It's easy to obtain a fully automatic machine gun today. I don't want to give that impression, but it is centrally legal, and it's always been legal, said Stefan Golchowski, a CNN contributor and a founder of The Reload, a publication on firearms policy and politics. In layman's terms, a machine gun is a fully automatic gun that can fire continuously as long as the trigger remains suppressed, rather than requiring a new trigger for every shot like semi-automatic weapons do. Under federal law, the legal acquisition of a machine gun requires getting fingerprints printed, filling out a detailed registration form, not to be considered a prohibited person because of crimes, drug use, and other criteria, receiving the consent of a senior law enforcement official, passing a federal background check, and making a $200 tax payment. The amount has not been changed since 1934 gun control law, when $200 was the equivalent of more than $4,000 today. There were legally registered machine guns in every state as of May 2021. According to the published Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms data, and a total of 741,146 in the country. As Gostowski has written, a significant percentage of those guns are likely owned by law enforcement and licensed dealers. These groups, unlike civilians, are allowed to possess machine guns made or imported on or after May 19, 1986. But there's no doubt that there is a larger number of legal possessions of civilians. States including New York, Illinois, Iowa, Hawaii, and Delaware broadly ban civilian possession of machine guns. California and New Jersey allow people to apply for exceptions to their civilian possession bans, but those exceptions are granted infrequently. A small number of states, such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Massachusetts, have general citizen possession bans, but make exceptions, like various announces, for collectors and people possessing keepsakes. Louisiana's general ban also includes an exception for bank guards. Good. So, like I said last time, we have these people at banks with machine guns. Why can't we have people at schools with machine guns protecting kids? That would be the right thing to do. Okay, moving on to the next article, we actually have a MSNBC article. Deadly Migration Center fire shuts down one of the GOP's most dishonest claims. Our country's enforcement first immigration policy makes migrant deaths environmental. At least 38 people died this week in a fire at a migration center in Mexico across the Rio Grande from El Paso, Texas. Despite Mexico President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador's claim Tuesday that the deaths were environmental because migrants protesting their deportation caused the fire. A surveillance video provided to Telemonto suggests Mexican government officials abandoned those who were locked up and couldn't escape. The video also causes us to question if migrants even started the fire. By Tuesday, the Mexican government has issued 6 arrest warrants on charges of international homicide, including 3 for officials from Mexico's National Immigration Institute, the agency that runs the facility that for one of the most part of in the detention center for migrants waiting to claim asylum in the United States. They're killing us, but they're killing us psychologically. One migrant from Venezuela in Gerardes told The Guardian this week. There's immigrant children who have been detained more times than any criminal. It's like a jail. Another migrant in Gerardes told Telemundo. While the deadly fire was shocking, it's not even the deadliest United States border migration tragedy of the past year. In June, 53 migrants were found dead inside an abandoned tractor trailer in San Antonio. As I said then, our law enforcement first immigration policy is designed for people to die. How often do we fix such a broken system? How do we finally bring the countless examples of migrant tragedies to an end? We open our borders. Of course, Republicans love to claim that our borders are open already. It is open. The border is dangerous. Rep. Alvin Bragg, Republican from Arizona, said in February during a Housing Judiciary Committee hearing about President Biden and the border. Drugs pour across international terrorists, criminal gang members, people from all over the world. And I completely agree. Listen, MSNBC, you are just so stupid you do not want to look in front of your face. Our border is open. We have fentanyl flying into the country. We have fentanyl deaths rising. We have criminals going straight through the Mexican border, which you can see on video. You can go to any website that actually shows real news. You can see migrants just going right through the water into American soil and then just getting away with it. Just getting their ride right into the America. And then you can see buses full of people getting into America, and then they get placed with a debit card with money on it so they can buy groceries for the next couple months. We're doing all of this for migrants. Why? Why are we doing all this for migrants? Let's ask MSNBC, but they don't want to answer that question. Moving on to the next article, we actually have Glenn Youngkin dials Virginia's voting rights policy back to Jim Crow. Of course. A person's civil rights ought not to be subject to the discretion of any politician, especially not one believed to be considering for a run in the White House. There's no good reason to deny citizens who have served time for committing crimes, even horrible crimes, the right to vote. You're stupid. MSNBC, so you think that a mass shooter should have the right to vote? Why? You think that a person that committed countless lives to death should have the right to vote? No. You think that somebody raped somebody should have the right to vote? No. So why do you think that violent criminals should have the right to vote? Now, if you got arrested on a weed charge, that's completely different. If you got arrested for drinking and driving, that's completely different. But if you killed somebody, or if you raped somebody, or if you touched somebody sexually, and now you're a pedophile, no, you should not vote. You should not be welcomed into normal society, because what you did is not forgivable. It is not. What criteria is Youngkin using to determine who is entitled to cast a ballot? Only he knows. Apparently, he's going to balance grace with concerns for public safety. Youngkin exercising this kind of discretion matters on the state and national level because it can factor into which political party wins elections in Virginia, including who wins in the White House in 2024, but its impact on individual Virginians trying to fully re-enter society is even more significant. A person's civil rights ought not to be subject to the discretion of any Republican, especially not one believed to be eyeing a White House run. As the Virginia Mercury reports, in making people who's been released from prison proactively apply for the restoration of their voting rights, Youngkin is breaking a precedent followed by his 3 inmate predecessors, a Republican and 2 Democrats, who oversaw the automatic restriction of voter rights for at least certain groups of former prisoners. What's more, Youngkin's administration reportedly changed the policy without an announcement and only acknowledged it after Senator Lionel Spurrell, a Democrat, asked why the pace of voting rights restoration has appeared to slow down. Former Governor Ralph Northam restored voting rights to 126,000 Virginians, an average of 31,500 people a year, during his 4-year term as governor. The Virginia Mercury reports Youngkin, during his first year, restored such rights to only 4,300 people. That's an 86% decrease, and that decrease was needed because if you're arrested for a reason. Each applicant is different, and we utilize our partners at the Virginia Department of Corrections, Virginia State Police, Virginia Department of Elections, Virginia Department of Behavioral and Development Services, and the Comprehension Board to research each application and provide further information to be used in the consideration process. Secretary of the Commonwealth K. Coles James wrote Spurrell in a letter dated March 22nd. That, quote, each applicant is different is true, but irrelevant when it comes to something as significant as the eligibility to vote. In states where prisoners lose their right to vote, those who are released from prison should have the right to vote automatically restored. If a state's restoration process isn't automatic, then it should be impersonal. Never should law enforcement or corrections officials have a say in whether the person who has served time gets a cast a ballot. Such a policy amounts to giving police and wardens never-ending authority over those who've completed their sentences. Even if you complete your sentences for raping somebody, it does not mean that you are forgiven for that rape. Just because you are forgiven, quote unquote, in the legal aspect of sexually assaulting a minor, it does not mean that you should have the right to vote because you are a disgusting human that should not be allowed in normal society. That's it. Moving on to the next article from NPR, we have United States Capitol rioter, the QAnon shaman, is released early from federal prison. Jacob Chansley, who received one of the longest sentences handed down to the United States Capitol riot, has been released early from federal prison and sent to a re-entry center. Chansley, 35, was convicted of obstruction of an official proceeding in November 2021 and sentenced to 41 months in prison. But prison records show that Chansley has been moved to a residential re-entry management facility in Phoenix, where he was originally from, and is expected to be released on May 25th. Chansley received an early release in part because of his good behavior while in prison, says Albert Watkins, who represented Chansley through his plea and sentences. Mr. Chansley can now move forward with his life. For that, I applaud the BOP, Watkins told NPR in a statement. The United States Bureau of Prisons permitted its existing protocols, some of which are nuanced, to approximately permit the release of Mr. Chansley from prison, Watkins said. Chansley, also known as QAnon Shaman, became a notorious face for January 6th attack after storming into the United States Capitol bare-chested in fur headdress with horns. According to the Justice Department, Chansley was among the first 30 rioters to breach the government building. Inside, he took pictures of himself on the dais of the Senate floor and sat in the seat of Vice President Mike Pence had occupied an hour earlier. The Justice Department said when an officer asked him to leave, Chansley refused and called Pence a traitor. He left a note on the dais that read, "It's only a matter of time, justice is coming." Chansley was arrested a few days later and indicted on 6 charges, 2 of which were felonies. He ultimately struck a deal with the government and pleaded guilty to a single count of obstruction of an official proceeding. Men who honor admit when they're wrong, not just publicly, but to themselves. Chansley told the court in November 2021, "I was wrong for entering the Capitol. I have no excuse whatsoever. The behavior is undefendable." Chansley was a vocal behavior behavior of the several conspiracy theories, including QAnon, which claimed that there were nefarious Democratic actors involved in child trafficking rings. A local media outlet, Arizona Central, described him as a fixture at Arizona right-wing political rallies. Before his activism, Chansley said that he worked in a group home for troubled youths and studied religion, physiology, and ceramics at Glendale Community College, according to the Washington Post. Navy Times said that Chansley had served time in the United States Navy in his late teens, between 2005 and 2007, as a supply clerk, seaman apprentice. He earned several acknowledgments during his service, including the National Defense Service Medal. More than 1,000 people have been charged for the Capitol riot, which caused the most wide-ranging investigation in the history of the Justice Department. About $2.6 billion have been advocated to United States attorneys in part to support the January 6 prosecutions. Good, because these people have been targeted, even though the protesters that went into the Capitol building in Nashville on Thursday have not been arrested at whatsoever. And that's just stupid. Moving on to the next article from NPR, we actually have Trump's lawyer says the Manhattan grand jury's indictment is a political prosecution. And I completely agree. Political prosecution is now how Trump's lawyers described a Manhattan grand jury's decision to indict the former president related to his alleged role in a hush money scandal with adult film star Stormy Daniels. When President Trump is involved, there's apparently no real rule. Jim Trusty told NPR's Juna Summers, everybody breaks the rules as prosecutors. Trusty is one of the lawyers representing the former president in the probe over handling of the government records after leaving office, including highly classified material found at Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. I was certainly off guard, he told NPR. I had hopes that the Justice Department was going to prevail early rather than going through the process of having to legitimate in court. The interview has been lightly edited for length and clarity. Interview highlights on whether he has specific information on the charges. It does give us a little bit of transparency in terms of what we think are going to be in the charges. And again, it's early. We have heard rumors of 34 counts or 30 counts, but it appears to be the sum of some substance of it relies on a fairly frail legal notion that you can take this misdemeanor of false record keeping and somehow turn it into a felony based on the federal predicate. That's shaky. That they have to do that and try to avoid the statute of limitations, because remember, this is a case, and I put in quotes, that the United States Attorney's Office, which is not particularly shy about looking at President Trump, shed away from because they recognized it was not a real crime. And let me just say, there's a lot of issues with it. Obviously, credibility in witnesses is a giant, but I think that insurmountable issue in Michael Cohen is your star witness, a convicted perjurer, disbarred felon, but the legal issue in terms of trying to establish a specific intent to support those misdemeanors is lacking. So we'll see what the indictment looks like. But it won't surprise me at all. There's a very robust, very timely motion to dismiss based on this kind of ridiculous, unheard of, unprecedented legal authority of Alvin Bragg that you can somehow infer a specific intent to defraud when there is none that ever occurred. On what grounds could lawyers use to file a motion to dismiss the case? Well, on the grounds it is completely political prosecution. So, I know that the attorneys on the New York team are going to be aggressive. They're going to jump right into this when they have the chance to review the indictment. I think they'll recognize that it's in the president's interest to make the public interest to get this to the judge on a motion to dismiss early and have the opportunity to really stop a historic wrong with the politicized prosecution. So I think that you're going to see something. I can't vouch for the exact timing, but I say measured in days or weeks rather than weeks or months. On whether the former president is being held to the same legal standards, what I would tell you, we look at it as a situation where nobody is trying to suggest that President Trump should be treated better than any other American citizen, but he certainly shouldn't be treated worse than any other citizen. And when you have that kind of targeting, the pre-announced decision by prosecutors that they will find a crime and then they will indict, that's upside down. That's not justice in the country. That's not the rule of law. So all we're looking for is the equality under the law and not some sort of supremacy. And I completely agree. If they're not going to hold everybody else to the same standard as Trump, then why prosecute Trump and not anybody else? They're not going to prosecute Joe Biden and the Biden family, but they're going to prosecute Trump because of charges that happened 7 years ago that have nothing to do with, frankly, anything now. Moving into the next article, we actually have a Daily Wire article. We have a look back on 3 gun control laws that were ultimately ineffective. In the light of the recent tragic mass shooting in Nashville, many grieving Americans find themselves inundated with anti-gun rhetoric from the legacy media and politicians alike. Whether it's on assault weapons, magazine capacity restrictions, or increased licensing requirements, President Biden and the left have been increasingly open about the desire to restrict access to firearms. But will new gun control measures actually do anything to curtail gun-related homicide rates? A look back at past legislation can help answer that question. We have 3 major gun control measures and how they turned out. Quote, the Federal Assault Weapons Ban of 1994, also known as the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act. The Federal Assault Weapons Ban of 1994 was a subsection of a larger crime bill signed into law by former President Bill Clinton. The bill was largely motivated by an increasingly amount of violent crime in the United States. The law prohibited the selling, manufacturers, importation, and transfer of the specific semi-automatic firearms categorized as, quote, assault weapons. The ban included a sunset provision, meaning it phased out in 2004, after George W. Bush declined to renew it. Despite all of the regulations, limitations, and conditions inherent on the bill, numerous studies in subsequent years have shown the ban to have been largely ineffective. In a 2017 interview from JAMA Internal Medicine titled Firearms Laws and Firearm Homicides, a systematic review, it was concluded that, quote, limited data from 4 studies on the effects of federal assault weapons ban in effect from 1994 to 2004 did not provide evidence that the ban was assisted with a significant decrease in firearm homicides. Arriving in a similar conclusion was Grant Dewey, the director of research and evacuation for the Minnesota Department of Corrections, in a 2009 study titled Criminologically in Public Policy. Dewey found that after adjusting for population growth, it was not apparent that the assault weapons ban had any impact on the number of public mass shootings. It was not apparent that the assault weapons ban had any impact on the number of mass shootings. During the 5th year of the ban being in effect, one of the most infamous mass shootings in the United States in history occurred, the Columbine Massacre. On April 20th, 1999, 2 high school seniors entered the Columbine High School in Littletown, Colorado, and mercilessly ended the lives of 12 students and 1 teacher, injuring 21 others in the process. One of the weapons used in the Columbine student shooting was a TEC-9, a weapon specifically banned by the name of the 1994 assault weapons ban, thus further proving the ban was ineffective to criminals who refused to acknowledge the law. And on top of this, it is against the law to kill people, and it is against the law to bring a gun to a school, and it's against the law to bring a gun into a bank. So people still do it. The Brady Act, named after the former White House Press Secretary James Brady, who was left paralyzed after being shot in the head by John Kennedy Jr. in the assassination attempt of former President Ronald Reagan. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act required a federal background check before any handgun was sold from a federally licensed dealer, manufacturer, or importer in 32 states. In addition, when the bill was originally passed in 1993, it required a 5-day waiting period on handgun purchases. This remained the case for 5 years until the National Instant Background Check System was implemented in 1998. Just before signing the law into act, President Bill Clinton expressed the optimism, saying, quote, "We will have, when I go and sign this bill in a minute, it will be a step down. Just before signing the act into law, President Bill Clinton expressed his optimism, saying, quote, "When I go and sign this bill in a minute, it will be a step one in taking our streets back, taking our children back, and reclaiming our families and our future." Despite this, various studies showed the bill, similar to the assault weapons ban, was largely ineffective. A widely cited study conducted by James Judwig and Philip J. Cook, titled "The Limited Impact of the Brady Act, No Evidence of the Reduction in Deaths," found no evidence of the reduction in homicides after the act was put into effect. Philip J. Cook, co-author of the study, explained in a Charlotte Observer article that when comparing 32 states who implemented the Brady bill to the 18 that did not, no significant difference in the homicide reduction presented itself in the data. Some gun control advocates have challenged the study's conclusion by mentioning a slight decrease in the number of annual gun-related deaths, to which researchers have responded. While it is possible for the Brady Act and thus contributed to the nationwide reduction in gun violence, the evidence is sketchy at its best. The fact is that the homicide rates already started to decline in 1991 before the Brady Act became law. Various reasons have been offered to the decline: more cops, more prisons, a better economy, and an easing of the crack epidemic are all plausible explanations. The various laws of Illinois. Despite having some of the strictest gun laws in the country, the state of Illinois, especially Chicago, is subject to some of the most and worst homicide rates in America. As a result, gun crime in Chicago is frequently cited by oppositions of gun control as proof that restricting firearms doesn't necessarily solve the problem of gun violence. Illinois is one of the few states who requires residents to obtain a firearms owner's identification card, FOID, from state police if they want to own a firearm or ammunition of any kind. In addition, quote, "assault weapons are banned in certain areas of the state, and mandatory wait times of up to 32 hours are required for most firearms purchases." Illinois' gun legislation has been so strict that at times of the Supreme Court had to intervene. In 1982, for example, the city of Chicago banned the possession of handguns by civilians. It wasn't until 2010 when the Supreme Court ruled the ban unconstitutional in the McDonald versus City of Chicago. The residents once again were allowed to own them. Despite all of the regulations that are still actively enforced, violence has constantly been a major problem for the United States. According to the CBS Chicago, out of all the cities in the United States, Chicago had the most mass shootings in the last 4 years. They report that since 2018, the city has been 811 injuries and fatalities. According to the CBS Chicago, out of all the cities in the United States, Chicago had one of the most mass shootings over the last 4 years. They report that since 2018, the city has had 811 injuries and fatalities. Another local news outlet, ABC7 Chicago, reports that in 2020, Chicago saw 769 murders, 3,261 shootings. Both of these murders were up significantly compared to 2019, which saw 495 murders and 2,140 shootings. Considering those sobering numbers, the common pattern that follows gun legislation is the realistic world if it does not do what it's supposed to do. If criminals were to abide by and care for the law, they wouldn't commit violent crime, and the country wouldn't need gun restrictions at all. Instead of trying old tricks that have time and time again proven themselves inactive, Americans should take a deeper look into what is driving killers. Only then will we be able to understand the problem and turn the tide. And I completely agree with this whole entire article because honestly, these gun laws do not work. It is illegal, like I said before, it is illegal to kill kids. It's illegal to bring a gun to a school, and it's illegal to kill anybody, not even just kids. But people still do it because they do not care. So if you ban that very gun that they have in their hand, they were going to use it to kill people, which is also against the law. So they do not care at all. Now, with that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of the Demetrius Richards Show. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you liked it. If you did like it, please like down below and subscribe because I do post new episodes of the show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope they have a great rest of your day. Bye.